ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Yeah.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
It was just meant to be that way.
Just meant to be. And welcome to Talking Shh IT with Glenn and Tony. Happy Thursday. Gotta love it when another Thursday rolls around.
Yeah, and now we got a nice new intro.
Yeah, definitely. Kudos on that. I'm liking the way that came out. Very cool. We've got a number of things that we're going to go over this week, but we're going to probably start in slow, look at a couple things that we saw as videos, and also do a couple things with the keys. Now, right now, we're saying that you don't hear the actual output from the keys, but you can see the meticulous, so you can see which notes we're working with here. Whereas on yours, we can see the whole thing. Yeah. So if I'm hitting chords, for example, you'd be able to see what we're doing.
D major.
Yep. I was hanging out in D major, where we have two sharps. We got F sharp and C sharp. And that way, most of what we'd be dealing with, as far as chords, we'd be dealing with like the D major, the G major, and the A major. And the rest would be minors. So like the 1, the 4, the 5 would be our D major, G major, and A major. And then if you used any of the others, they would be minors.
Like
Yep.
that.
Yep, exactly. Just like that. Do that again. Yeah, I like the colors too. Now, is that changing when you hit the low ones, or is that trigger on certain notes?
These are probably not triggering when I'm playing this high. To get them to change, I got to play down here.
Gotcha. Which is also kind of cool in itself. It's encouraging you to spread out the voicings and try different placing, different places to play it from.
Yeah, it forces me to really go down.
Mm-hmm. Nice. The low Ds. Now on this one, I can get way down there on this keyboard, but like again, you're not hearing it, so you're not getting. But with the meticulous, I do have a full 88 here, so I can get all the way down and all the way up to the top there.
Yeah, the staff has a harder time keeping up with you.
Definitely, because if we're at middle C right there, hanging out, and then they're going to show as a natural because we're playing in D where we were playing a C sharp. But yeah, we're already, kind of uncomfortably off the top there by the time you're 2 octaves up from the middle C. And then you still got another octave above that and an octave above that. So those are just getting cut off mostly because of the way I have the interface cut off, or the interface zoomed in, I should say, because we usually don't go that far off the top of the staff. Same thing though, when you start getting down low, we're also off the bottom there until we get back up to like that A, and that's also like 2 octaves and change below the middle C when you start dropping off the screen there. But at the same time, we can always rescale everything into the middle section if we wanted to keep everything in a comfortable range, looking in there. kind of keeping it in range. Those are all C's. That's good. The middle C is, that nice middle ground, because you start going down, you're in the bottom. You start going up, and you're on the top.
Oh, I can actually hear a little piano in the distance.
A little bit of the rattling of the keys. Yeah, and that was in D major. I will get that rerouted. The main issue was that if I have it routed the way the other one was, I had it routed with stereo cable going into the board, and then I would have to have it cranked at a loud volume in the room, because I would have to manually disconnect the speaker in this piano in order to get it to not output, through its internal speaker. So I would basically be blasting everybody with piano all night. So usually I just do it where I had my other keyboard, but I left the power supply in the car, I think. So apologies. I could probably find that later, though, if we need to. But in the meantime, we do get to where I can see this part, so that's the important thing.
We still have not located the power supply.
Nope. The power supply is still missing, MIA. But we will find it at some point, and then it'll be there. And we'll be able to work with it from there. But we also had the bass hooked up right now, so that's, let's see. Not sure how loud it is if I bring it up full. Pretty loud or a little loud?
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay. And then D. D's one of the ones I like a lot, because on the 5-string, I could play that D down at the 3rd fret on the low B string. You get that nice low D. That's lower than most people get, because if you have just a regular 4-string bass, the lowest you can get is the low E, unless you start tuning down. So that low E is usually as low as you get at the bottom of a 4-string bass, but getting to that D and being able to keep going down to the C and the low B, all the way at the bottom.
Really can get down with that B, huh?
That low B, yep. So that's what I like about that.
Yeah, I don't even usually play down there on here.
And on a piano, it does have that kind of almost, it's like a rattly sound almost, or something along those lines.
It's like the Jaws effect.
Yeah. The Jaws effect coming through. Now, if I had this one, was where we actually had kind of zoomed in, but you can't really see the headstock there, right? But if you're doing stuff like when I was doing chords the other day, holding something like that, it's just you're holding the E string and the high G string 1 fret apart. You're getting a major sound because you're getting a root and the 3rd an octave above. That's why that always sounds nice.
You can't get that Lou Reed out of your head, huh?
No, I can't. But again, it's just a matter of whether it's the slide. When I did it on the fretless, that slide sounds like a lot smoother. The fret sounds a lot smoother when you're sliding with the fretless, but with this one, I have more ability to do different things because I have that low B string as well. So I can do the same chords on that low B string instead of up here, where I could be starting way down there. And coming up from there, though, things sound really muddy when you're that far down. So a lot of times I'd rather just play up, higher up, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, so checking the camera there, it was okay. And this one is fine. I think everything's a little bit low, though. I gotta get a booster chair. When's the last time I thought I'd have to say that?
Yeah.
This one we kind of get both. So I got that one, and we get this one, but this one, again, can't quite see the picking hand unless I'm over here. So, getting squared away.
Well, I do like the neck cam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's in a pretty good spot for that. It kind of gets to the picking hand, so I can just kind of shift this way if I want to emphasize what I'm doing over here, which is usually just whether it's 2 fingers or whether I'm using 3. And it depends on what I'm doing and how low I'm going. If I'm on that low B string, you kind of have to be way down here, and you're doing muting with your fretting hand. So you're kind of muting things up here while you're playing. Or that finger itself that you're fretting with is actually kind of muting, it's laid across the other strings. So it's doing the job of muting everything except that, the really fat string. But usually you're playing something more complicated, Now I hear a lot of buzz in the background. That might just be air conditioners on my end or something. But
I don't hear it here. I mean,
Okay,
I hear
good.
a little faint air conditioner in the distance, but
as long as it's not overpowering the bass sound.
not at all.
And there's the D. Not bad for tuning.
Yeah,
Never can tell when it gets
You
cold.
are in tune.
Actually, that's a good. It's good for intonation checking because, like, again, if it's in tune when it's open, I'm just playing the open string itself. And if you're hitting that D that matches around there, that sounds good. And then if you play at the octave very gently, one octave higher. Yep. And then if I did the harmonic, and then I could do a harmonic way up here. That one you can barely hear unless you hit it really careful. But the fact that it's in tune at the open and at the 12, and then do the same thing for if we did that on A instead of on D, we get an A that's down there and up here, and those need to be the same. And same for E and B. And that's how we can tell if the intonation is relatively good. Checking it at the octave is a good start to see if the things are in. Then you can check everything where mainly I'll check octaves. So I'll check, if I'll check a G, for example, I'll play a G in an octave, and then a C in an octave, and then a D. And this is just checking for stringed instruments. For keyboards, usually once you're, if it's not a mechanical piano where the individual strings can be out of tune, generally an electronic keyboard would have no issues with tuning. If it's in tune in one place, it's in tune everywhere. But it's important to check where who you're playing with and what you're matching up with to make sure that you guys are in tune with each other. So that's where like a lot of people just tune by ear to whatever instrument is either least able to tune or most inconvenient to tune.
Yeah, like a sax.
Yeah, exactly. Like tune to a sax, or if you're playing at a studio piano or something, tune to the piano, for example, to make sure that it's working there.
They always tune to me in the band.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That would be the way to do it. Now, I'm not sure here. I was checking to see about the chat there. Not seeing yet. So we have to see what's going on there. But that's okay. Also depends if I'm doing it in a minor key or doing it in a major key. Like even there, that was just D minor pentatonic.
I like D minor better than major, but
D minor's nice, yeah.
yeah, D minor I can. It's a nice minor scale.
Yeah, I like that. Very cool. And that's also where doing the those tenths, instead of doing it one fret away, I would do it as the same fret. And that gets you the minor because you're doing then the D at the 10th fret, for example, and then just keeping it at the 10th fret on the high string gets you that A. So you're only playing two notes, D and the, no, not the A, what does that be? F, I guess.
Oh yeah. F.
And that's the F an octave above for this move. But again, if I were playing it down here, it sounds muddy because the notes are too close together. That's why you put it an octave above, because it kind of cleans it up.
Gives them a chance to stand out a little bit on each side.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If they're
They
too
get a little bit
close-
away from each
yeah,
other.
if they're too close, they clash.
Mhm.
They're muddying up because they're too
Too close in the
to each
same
other's
neighborhood.
sound. Yeah.
It happens though. But yeah, I don't frequently play chords with the bass, but when I do like to just do those little fragments, and those are either just doing the root and then that 10th or the third an octave above, or sometimes you'll put in the 7 as well. In which case it would be like for that D minor 7, you would just be doing all 3 of them on the 10th fret, and that gives you that minor 7. Because now all I'm hitting is the root and that third, the same one we were just talking about, and then also the flat 7. So that C is in there. And by keeping these two up high is the 7th and the 3rd. And then you got the root down below by itself, kind of standing apart, so that it almost sounds like 2 separate instruments.
That's a nice. That 7th really does give it some.
Gives it extra flavor. I'm going to mute for a second and change to the guitar to play the minor 7 chord there.
Yeah, I like adding that little 7th in there. It does give it a whole different mood.
Whole different flavor.
Ah, the B's an asshole with the C there.
He's not
I
playing
gotta-
nice.
Yeah, I got to do a B flat.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Or you can try to skip the B. You could even do it as a sus, where you either do the 2 or the 4 instead of the 3, if it's the 3 that's in the way. Kind of work around it.
Actually, if I just keep the C, staying on the C the whole time on the top end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that works too.
I need to stretch my fingers to Glen size.
Yeah, that's the D minor 7 over here. I was very much out of tune, so I didn't want to murder you guys with me tuning up. So figured I'd stay muted. It's pretty close. And that's if I'm playing it at the 5th fret, And then if you're doing that as a minor, but that's a major you're doing. So you're doing C major there. And then back to the D, minor 7. And that's what I like about that one is those little movable shapes. Once you get that, the major shape, the minor 7 shape, even just the minor shape without the 7 is one that we could start with, because then you're getting the difference. Like that's the one that we were just playing, just the regular D minor without that 7. Where I'm just playing roots, thirds, and fifths. But then if you're going to add that 7th in there, you get that extra flavor, like you said.
Well, yeah, the seventh definitely gives it, makes it moodier. Because if I just play the D by itself, I mean it's pretty, but when you add that 7th to it, it's
And for that major, I'm just playing a root, a 5, and a 3. So it is just a triad as well. On the C.
it's a darker, moodier.
It's a nice back and forth, though. I definitely like the back and forth there.
B to work anywhere in there. He's an asshole.
You don't like him at all, huh?
Well, I want to use it, but it really does not fit into the mood.
No, but also if you were coming down from, you're thinking about or if we were thinking about it as the D minor being the 6, right? It would be the 6 of F would be the major, the relative major that we'd be thinking of. So we're kind of thinking about everything in F major, and with F major, you've got that B flat, right? So that's why the B doesn't like to work, but the B flat would be the place to be hanging. Like if we came down from the minor on the D, even if we came down to a dominant on the C, because that's using the flat 7, but the major 3rd. And then coming down just to the major on the F, or the B flat. B flat, yeah. Because that way you're coming down from a minor. If we did just from a minor to a major even. Then the last one's minor, yep. Yeah, there you go.
D, C, B flat.
B flat, yeah. And that's where we're going with the D minor, or the D minor 7 to the B major. Oh, sorry, the D minor 7 to the C major to the B flat major.
Yeah, the B really wants to go back to that C, which really wants to go back to that D.
They kind of push themselves back and forth, yeah. And that's just one of the grips that we talk about, the hand grips. That one being, we're starting with that minor one, so that's just a movable minor 7 bar chord, which is one of the easier ones to hit because you're just barring across 5 of the strings. I'll bring it in a little closer here. Barring across 5 of the strings instead of all 6. Let's see if we do it that way, probably. Like basically I'm just barring across all the 5 except for the fattest string, and then just adding these 2 in. So I'm basically doing, at this place, 5, 7, 5, 6, 5. Would be the way to describe that one. And then the majors, I'm just doing a bar, hitting 4 strings. And then for the B flat, it's the same shape as the other one. And then the C. And just bouncing in those is useful as well. Just being able to go back and forth between those and see what what feels right for doing changes up through them.
I know those chords.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we know all the chords. Like every chord you've ever heard, has been used by more than one person in more than one place. So anything could be anything.
That's playing in D.
Yep, a little bit of D minor, right? D minor 7, even starting with that. Back to the D. So yeah, that was just basically picking a key.
The D.
Always comes back to the root, the root of what you're trying to get across with whatever we're trying to do there. Now with the, let's see, with the meticulous that we had set up, this is again where I had it in D major, right? So that would be the D major that we were looking at there. You had it going on just fine. When we did the D minor with the 7, I would do it normally that way. If I was doing it as a one-handed chord, putting that C on the top. And actually, if it's a D minor, let me just change the key to make it less confusing in the actual meticulous. See, the fact that it's showing D major shows those 2 sharps, but as soon as I change it to D minor, it changes it to only showing 1 flat, because in D minor, we only have to deal with that B flat, because it's related to F major, where we only have the 1 flat to deal with. But in that case, when we do that D minor 7, they're all natural, or they all fall in the scale. That's a D, F, and A, and a C. Just in that way. And then when we come down to the C, I would probably just keep it as a major and not do it as a major 7, because that, like I said, that B doesn't really like it there. Kind of sounds a little sour. So keeping it as C, even if you just do with the octave on the top, And then same thing when you get down to that B flat, you're trying to keep it with the B flat staying in the key, and everything else should be where it was. And then even if you wanted the, yeah, we should probably keep the top one in there as well. So both B flats, top and bottom, and then the D and the F in the middle. That way we're starting from a minor 7 just to a major triad with an octave on the top, and then same for that one. But that also keeps everything just in the one octave if I was using just one hand for the chords.
I do like starting with that 7th kind of accented like that.
Mm-hmm. One thing is that when I play with a pick, it always sounds like a lot. I mean, that's probably a lot louder, right?
Not too bad.
But if I were doing things like back and forth stuff like that. And then when you get down to that.
I got a couple of songs that kind of take that route.
Yeah, I like that. Very cool. And that's just starting, again, a little bit of D minor and just kind of playing around from there to see what's what.
Yeah, highly recommend D minor as a scale to experiment writing with.
Additionally, highly recommend just screwing around with whatever key and seeing what feels right or seems like it's working out the way it should. One thing I could do is I could try to bring that one, that one down. I'm hiding in the bottom of the frame like Ange does. I'm like trying to be just all in the bottom of the camera, but in the other one I'm almost out the top of the camera. So definitely got to work on that. But it depends what I'm trying to show too. So if we're trying to look at
Shout out
this
to Johnny,
stuff.
Richard,
Yeah.
Unabomber.
What's happening, fellas? Happy Thursday. Now, if we took that same idea over to C minor, is where I would usually do the song "Spooky."
C minor.
Is it C? Yeah, it's C minor. I think. Wait. No, actually, I'm lying. I'm in doing F minor and B flat minor.
F minor's no better.
Yeah, exactly. But doesn't have to be those chords though. Instead, what we could do is if we moved it and started with the A minor, because we like A minor. Same shape for me. I just slide up. And then the other one would be the D minor that we were just talking about, D minor 7. In a different position at this point for me. But that A minor 7 is the one where if we were doing over here. Yep. And normally the way that other song I would normally do it in, like I'd be starting up high and then coming down to the other one, and the bass kind of goes back and forth, just rocks between those 4 notes. Where that in that case that's the D, E, G, and A, and then goes to the top chord. Yeah. Gives you a feel like that going back and forth between the two. Yeah. And that's kind of thing where you can either do the changes fast or you can do them slow, and see how it feels different between the two.
Feel a little swing in that one.
Yep.
If I could get that bounce a little bit, like.
Ah, there he is. Nice.
I think I'm starting to feel some of that Hungarian reggae, man.
Yeah.
Either that or it's like maybe there's
It's
some
rubbing off.
polka in there.
Yeah, for sure. And also
Add an
these,
accordion.
just doing little pieces of chords also helps out a lot sometimes, where in this case, just doing these top 3 strings, you kind of get the idea of that first chord that we were playing. It's almost enough of it to see what's happening, or even the top 4 string, if you're doing a bar. But I like those 3. And then when I come down to that other chord, it's basically just all of these. So I can just hit all on the 10th fret there. So like the first one. And if you're just going back and forth between those two, you can kind of, you get the feel of it, right? While also that would stay out of the way of other instruments. Playing in a larger group where you have other people, somebody's playing big chords down here, somebody's playing keyboard, somebody's playing bass. There's a lot of stuff going on, then you can just play little stuff like that. And even just breaking it up and doing it in like, and you're doing little things like that. You throw those in between while people are playing, the rhythm.
And that's another thing that I've been noticing is you don't necessarily have to change the chords you're playing in order to change the feel of a part. A part can simply be a totally different bounce, because that same A to D there, whether you're doing versus same chords, but
Oh yeah.
totally
That's
different flavor.
it's an important lesson also for if you're writing, songwriting, where if you were doing a verse and a chorus, for example, you don't necessarily have to change what chords you're doing. Like that exact example would be a perfect way to have a verse in using those chords, and then you go to a chorus that's also using those chords, but using them in a totally different way, so it sounds like a completely different part because that bounce, like you said.
Well, and by having that different bounce, it gives the singer an opportunity to totally change up the melody.
Oh yeah, and the intensity too. Like with those little chirps, kind of the chirp chords, where you're just doing little bits and pieces. They can bring it way down, so they don't have to be nearly as loud. And then you can bring it up really loud and play, full on chords that are ringing out, and they have to sing way over it. So you can definitely go back and forth. There's a lot of interplay opportunities with volume dynamics and things like that.
Really,
Coffee.
at its simplest, you can pick 2 chords and start writing a song.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you
And,
can do it with 1 chord, but you got to be really good.
If you're gonna do one, I would recommend funk as the as the style, because funk in E or funk in A is the kind of thing that you could do all day.
That's 1 chord.
Yep.
But you do feel like you want to go somewhere. It's hard to hit 1 chord for a long period of time and not.
It's hard to
feel
stay interesting with 1 chord for sure. But they're definitely with 2, you can definitely make entire sections. I mean, Fish has entire song sections. There's one called Reba, is a song that Fish does, and there's one whole section called the Reba Jam, where it's like completely sounds different than the rest of the song. The rest of the song is very chaotic, jumps back and forth, lyrics all over the place. Then it gets to the jam, and it's just completely different. It's like you just dove into a nice warm lake, and you're just like, and it's just back and forth between these 2 chords, and they just jam nice and mellow on those 2 chords. Like for they could do it for hours, but that's the thing, is just having 2 chords that feel nice back and forth. And in the case that we were just doing there with the A minor and the whatever we were doing there, was that A minor and D
A
minor?
and D. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Just those happen to be far apart, right? So those are a fifth apart, right? Like we were starting with the A, and then the D would then be the, they're right near each other in that respect. But you can also do it with 2 chords that are right next to each other, where you go back and forth from, like, for example, the A and the G.
That's like what we started with. The D
Right.
to the C, the D to the C, the D to C is
Yep.
nice, easy, up,
And it started
up,
with-
down.
And it started with the D minor, so it was the D minor 7 to the C. But you can also do it major to major, you can do it minor to minor, you can do it major to minor, but experimenting with each of the different ones to see how the flavor changes, because you're basically emphasizing a different implied key depending on which ones you're using when you're using 2 chords next to each other.
Yeah.
Two majors next to each other, especially.
If I do like an A major to a G,
Yep.
has a very different flavor than A minor.
Exactly. And what if you switch it the other way and went from A to G minor?
A major to G minor.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's workable.
Definitely a different sound.
I mean, I would write a different song bouncing between those 2.
Exactly. And that's the point, really. It's just that picking any 2 chords, whether they're major or minor, but having them, it's ideal that they're both in the key that you started, for example. So when you're starting in that A, you're figuring that G is in the key as a flat 7, right? So that's there most of the time. But you could also do A major with A flat minor. They're like kind of right next to each other, but it makes it sound really ugly. And that's where actually better chords for you would probably be A minor going down to, or wait, I said the first one was major, right? So yeah, I was going from A major to A flat minor 7. Do it from C major. Let's try C major to B minor 7. because they're so close together. It almost sounds like a resolution on its own, like it wants to be done. And that's what happens if you put them really close together. They kind of sound that way, where I prefer if it's like a whole step apart is good if you're doing those major, both major, or if you have it, the minor one on top and then going down to from the minor to the major like we did at first with that D to the C. Going from the minor 7 to the major. That kind of a back and forth always kind of feels really nice. If you're doing major to major, like you were saying before, the A and the G, if we were going from an A major to a G major, anytime you're just doing majors that are a whole step apart, you can just rock back and forth on that for a whole section of a song too, because that always feels good. Anytime you're using all the majors, you're basically using the 1, the 4, and the 5 in whatever combination. The other one you would throw in there would be that D, right? So you got the A, the G, and the D. And they sound like they all want to work together because that works into a 1-4-5, or in that case a 5-4-1 in the key of D. So it feels like it wants to land at the D.
Oh yeah, the D works with those two.
Yeah.
Wrote a song tonight.
Exactly.
It started with an A.
Went to a G, and then a D.
I don't know how to get out of this now, but we'll see. I don't think C would work there, though.
No. D. And then we'll D.
Yeah, and you could approach that in a lot of different, because that could be very rocky.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of reminds me of like some Creedence songs,
Yeah.
That's one where like an organ would actually work nice.
Yeah, definitely. And for this one, I would stay higher in the little chirp chords. Ooh, nice.
Yeah, now if you start strumming like Dead style.
This is where I gotta get my looper pedal together.
I can play some Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good way to do it, is to just get a little section of a tune together and rock with it, because there's so many Dead tunes where it's just, if you take just a small chunk of it, it's really not that hard to digest and work out what's going on. Like a lot of them are just a little 3-chord put together like that, but it's just the way that they hand off to each other, the way that they bounce off each other, the way that they fill in exactly what needs to be filled in the song, as they're going along. That was the thing that always amazed me about it, the interplay.
Who's doing which parts? Because you could have a guitarist that's doing like a chukka 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 on those chords, while the other guitarist is, hitting those little 1-3-5 solo-y kind of parts.
Yep. And actually
And the organ would just chucka chucka with the guitar.
Yep. There's one that's a perfect example of that was, what was I looking at the other day? I think it was just basically, if you were looking at it, like, if I take my thumb and I like block the fattest two strings, right, so that I'm not ringing out the fat two strings, and I use my pinky and get rid of the thinnest string, there's only 3 strings left. And I can use these 3 fingers to just kind of pluck those 3, right? If I do that, and I'm on 9-8-7, that's a major. Like, that's one of the chords they use. And then all the 9s, 9-9-9. And then the third one is 11-9-10. And it kind of comes down to a... And if you were looking at this in the cage system setup, this would be like in the key of... so that's like a B major. And then the other one would be, I guess, an E major and then an A major. So that's the way it's just those 3 chords going back and forth, and it sounds very simple because it's just 3 major chords going back and forth. But the way that they break it down this way makes it easier to play, because like these 2 chords are very simple. Like the 9 bar right here, you can just bar all of them on the 9, and then add these 2, adding the 10 and the 11 when I hit them right. Because that's just a little triad. That's all you need to define a major and minor chord, is the little triad. So you're getting the major, the third, and the 5. And it helps to get it all kind of in there. But by doing it with the big chords, you're doing a B major bar chord, and then an E major bar chord, and an A major bar chord.
Oh,
And you're ending up basically, yeah. So they end up being just one whole step apart in this case. So you're basically always going to the E in between when you're going from the... But then by simplifying it up here and just using those little triads. Exactly. And by doing it that way, like you're saying, if you have multiple instruments, if you had multiple guitar players, one of them could just be doing that little stuff, and the other one could be doing, if we're playing in that case, that's essentially in the key of E major. So we could be doing all kinds of like major pentatonic stuff in the key of E throughout the whole song, and it would fit because all those chords work with that. When you see 3 major chords like that, you kind of figure out which one's the 4, which one's the 5, and which one's the 1. In this case, the E ends up being the 1, even though it's the middle chord. But that way you got like essentially the 1, the 4, and the 5. And those are where the majors are. So you could hang out with those all day, or you could use the rest of the chords that are all going to be minor then. So if you were to use any of the other chords in that scale, you'd be using all the minor chords. But in the case of this song, it's a happy, bounce around in major, which is nice.
Yeah, if I just stick to the if I stick to the basic chords, it's pretty easy.
Exactly. That's another tricky part, is how the timing comes together, where it's not, like you're playing it fine, and it's just when you're trying to learn it in the first place, like it feels like when you're reading it from sheet music, where it's just like blah, 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 and you're trying to figure out how the timing is. So when you listen to them actually playing it, that's where you start hearing that little bouncy back and forth stuff happening, like you're doing there.
Yeah. I had to start with the main hits.
Yep. And then you figure out where the bounces can fit kind of in there.
Yeah, once you start to get comfortable with the main hits, you start thinking.
Exactly.
That's
see
good
if
for
I was doing-
practicing bounce. That's a totally different kind of bounce for me than usual.
Absolutely. And I think B Mixolydian would fit with that because, like, a lot of times when it comes down to if I were jamming over the whole thing, what would I use? And so the first thing I try to default to, if I know what the 1, the 4, and the 5 are, I try to figure out, well, we figured, okay, the E could be the 1, A is the 4, and the B is the 5. So if I'm playing with the 5 and I play it in Mixolydian, right on the 5, like all those notes are good when you're playing in a Mixolydian that's based on the 5 chord of whatever key you're playing in. So if you can figure out what the 3 major chords are and you find the 2 major chords that are next to each other, in this case the A and the B, the higher one of those, the B, you can just start there with the Mixolydian mode, where in this case you're just basically playing what would be E major, but starting on the B. So it's the same as if you were to start on that E. So E major is kind of what we're rooted in.
Shit, I could just do the bass.
There you go. This is also where, when we get the loop pedal together, which I have here, but I don't have the power. Is what I got to work out. You still get the power and get it logged or toggled into the system here, and then I'll be able to take something like that, those little chirp chords, or even just rhythm like do stuff like that. Where
That's the kind of guitar you want to be doing on top of a part like that.
and that's just getting the feel going, because so far there's no notes. It's all just dead strums. They sound different wherever you are.
Oh yeah, but you can go nuts with those, man.
Exactly.
It's like the metal version of the Dead when you are doing that.
Exactly. But again, it comes usually down to figuring out what would be the right key to be playing in. In this case, if it was all, if it was just like, okay, I could just call B Mixolydian, say solo in B Mixolydian, and somebody could just sit there and go up and down in B Mixolydian, which is essentially solo in E major, but land on the B and focus on that B, is kind of what that translates to. Because just playing all the notes that are in E major and then playing them starting at that B. Yep. There's a couple different ways that on the guitar to play it, but in this case, by looking at the modes, like that first way playing it is just playing E major in the root position, and then saying, okay, if we were playing it, if we were focusing on B, because in this case the song actually starts with that B. So from that B, like those would be the notes for me.
Severed in the house. What's up, Severed?
What's up? How you doing?
I think I could do some dead now.
Yes, sir.
I feel
Absolutely.
it. I feel it. I have
And there's
I have to bust out the organ more.
Oh,
Otherwise, some of these styles are hard to learn off the piano tone.
definitely. The way that they crunch in, the way that they gloss across things, the way they do a bunch of those things, definitely are a lot easier with the organ sounds. Whether it's organ sometimes or even electric piano work sometimes, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, electric piano is another one that I really should play with more. I've got some great electric piano sounds.
Exactly, and that's the bonus part. Is like some of those are really, really tasty. And again, with the organ parts, for me, it's either whether it's percussive organ or whether it's sometimes doing like a rock organ is another one I'll pick. Drawbar organ has its places, but that's kind of more in line of a church organ as far as the tone goes, to me at least. I'm sure there's other ones that work well, but it also depends on the patches. Like you could find just any kind of keyboard sound in there that would sound good.
Gotta play higher with this patch.
Ah, there you go.
I keep wanting to hit that E minor, damn it.
In this case, we're just doing all majors, but that's a good point. Is that we could
I
do
know in my head it's a major, but my fingers are saying no, minor.
well. If we were playing, let's say, as a home key, if we were using A minor as the starting point, right? Say we took A minor as a starting point and did A minor and D minor and E minor as the three chords. So doing like starting with, I guess, E minor to the A minor to the D minor. Starting with the E minor, and then the A minor, and then the D minor. Same idea, but because the chords have the same relation to each other, just as far as this is an easier key to play in, as far as it's rooted in A minor.
So you're using the A as the middle, the mediator.
Yeah, exactly. That A minor is the bounce point, and we're going back and forth to the E minor and the D minor on the other two. And as far as the chords on the guitar, it's super easy. As far as if I'm up here, it's the bar plus these two for the A minor, and then the E minor and D minor are both just a full bar with the A string 2 frets higher. And that just gives the same relative progression, a totally different spin where it's a totally, sadder, more mellow kind of a tone, but same distance.
It totally makes me want to play it in a different inversion.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and then you could actually go to the B thing.
And that way you're going from a fully minor thing to a fully major thing, but you're doing the
Yes.
same pattern. So as far as you're keeping, whether it's the same bounce or whether it's the same, again, relative distance between the keys, we're keeping, the 3 major chords that are supposed to be together and 3 of the minor chords that are supposed to be together. And what do we say about the 7?
Asshole.
He's an asshole, so we leave him out. But we used everybody else in that chord. So we used the 1, the 4, and the 5 that are major. We used the 2, the 3, and the 6 as minors. But we started from that 6, and that's where starting at that 6 with the A minor means that we're doing actually like in that case, we were doing a 3-2-6 progression, 3-2-6-2, because we're going from the 3, and that would be with, the 6 being that A minor. So considering things as 1 being the C in this case, because.
Oh, wow. We were in C there?
Well, technically, because we were in A minor, so that's the relative to C major. So that's why it was all white notes to start with. But it would be the same as doing from basically considering that first note chord could have been the C major. It would have been going from G to C to F is the same move. So basically the same thing we were doing before, but doing it with G, C, and F instead. So it depends whether you want to do it in major or minor, and that's how we could transpose it to different keys so we can make it easier to play or harder to play on the keyboard. You know, we can get to really funky keys where we're using a whole lot of sharps and flats, or we could try to keep it as simple as possible, like rooting in that A minor, for example, was a good start.
Trying it with the first inversion.
Nice. Before you were talking about wanting to hit that E minor, so there it is.
Totally want to hear a low bass on that.
Oh, yeah. And that's just a little bit of a minor bounce back and forth.
Yeah, see, that's where if I go high, I can just basically play off the E and the D.
Exactly. And that way you're simplifying it, but we're still, we know where those chords are, so we can jump to that that A if we wanted to ever, that A minor in the middle, but we don't have to. And that way it just becomes a bounce between those two minor keys.
These whirlies are cool, but you can't really get the true effect of them.
Yeah, they got to be loud in order to hear that fully.
Yeah, you don't get the actual whirl.
Yeah, and that's where that stereo effect comes in too. Got to be hearing in both ears.
Some smooth jazz.
Yep,
Yeah, you get a groove like that, it's hard to get out of it.
it is. And that's why, like, a lot of times you get into a groove like that and it'll go on not only for 4 minutes but for like 6 minutes, because after 4 minutes one person looks up like they're ready to get out of it, but they look up and they're not sure like how to get out of it, and they don't see anybody else jumping out of it, so it's okay. Somebody else then a minute later gets the idea, they look up and like they don't see a way out either, so they're like, all right, forget it, go back down. And it's not until somebody gives a really obvious thing, you're like 1, 2.
When in doubt, look at the drummer.
Yeah, well, the drummer doesn't know what we're doing changes wise though. Like he'll know timing wise, and that's the thing is the drummer a lot of times will be following the bass player, as far as like if the bass player's just kind of grooving there. Like there could be very subtle things between a bass player and a drummer where he'll feel me making a change, or he'll feel me doing a climb up or something, and know that the change is coming, and know to do the build so that we can hear it coming. I could signal him with a slight change in what I'm playing that signals him to do a build that signals everybody else to know that the part's coming. So it's one of those things that goes back and forth. And not just me, not just the bass player. I mean, signals can come from anybody in the band, but whoever knows the part's coming should be doing something about making sure that somebody knows. And a lot of times that could just be like, me looking up and making eye contact with Joey, and he's looking at me, and just get kind of a little nod, like, okay, here it comes. We both know it, and we can both jump. Doesn't have to be Joey either. It could be anybody. Again, anybody that you play with that you get comfortable with, and you know their style, or you know what to expect, and you know that, okay, if I go like, if I'm getting in there in his face, he knows, okay, here comes something, and we can get to it.
Yeah, and sometimes with those jam tracks like that, they're passing the solo along to each other,
Yep.
So like the guitarist might like nod his head, and next thing you know, there's a bassist taking the lead and
Yep.
passes
Now,
it over to the other guitarist. And
what's
then all
funny
of
is
a
I try
sudden,
to-
a drum solo.
I try to avoid taking leads on the bass at all costs. Just like I don't like bass solos from one standpoint is that a lot of times whenever, if you're just playing with whoever and they're like, okay, and bass solo, like literally everything drops out except maybe the drums, and the drums are just barely doing something just to leave it all open for you. But now, what are you going to play that both fills in and fits with the groove of the song that we were just playing, fills in all those parts that we were just listening to, and also counts as a bass solo? So it's like you're trying to think about 5 different things at once. Like, how do I keep that groove going that I just had while soloing around it, while adding all those parts that were supposed to be in there, or whatever. So it gets overwhelming sometimes with that, but it also depends on the song. Like a song like, for example, Brick House.
Yeah, there's a couple of songs where the bass does kind of jump in front for a moment, and
Well, Brick House is a good example for the bass line itself. Like if somebody said take a solo on Brick House, well, the whole song is dun 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 dun. Like the whole song is that bass line. So like as soon as you stop playing that bass line to go do a solo, it's no longer really Brick House. You're just soloing in the key of Brick House, really. And then unless you're incorporating that same groove, that same, you can be incorporating that same groove and getting like the walking pony thing where you're getting like the octaves. Like doing that kind of thing where you're getting like bounces like that going, stuff like that. Not that was in the key that we normally play it in, but it's just talking about throwing in octaves in that case. But for solos, again, I'd like to stay away from solos. If I'm going to do a solo, I'll do it on a guitar, I'll do it on a keyboard, I'll do it as a vocal, scat, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just on a bass, I really prefer not to, just because I don't feel, or if I am going to do one, I'd rather know about it ahead of time so I can plan something out. So it's like, okay, in song such and such, you're going to ask for a bass solo, fine, I'll work something out in that spot, because then I can work on, okay, getting something together that both, again, fits the groove, feels like the same song, so that if somebody walked in the middle of it, it's not like, oh, there's just some bass player noodling shit on stage. It's, oh, I recognize that song, and okay, they'll be coming back into it in a minute. That kind of thing.
It's a lot trickier for a bass to hold the song unless it's got that groove.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's where, again, if I'll happy to support anybody else doing solos all day, like, and I'll happy to solo if I'm on a different instrument. But when I'm on the bass, I just feel like I focus too much on what I'm trying to fill in for everything, because everything else just kind of dropped out. And I feel like I'm either, doing something that's cool bass solo but isn't true to the song, or it's staying true to the song but it isn't a good solo because I'm just basically covering the same groove I was with just a little bit of embellishment. Like, on the one song I did with my buddy Mike, the two of us were just practicing the one day, I think it was Eyes of the World. And he was asking if I wanted to do a bass solo in the middle, and I was just like, nah. And then he's just like, oh, you can just play the same thing but louder. And so I just started like hitting it, a little bit louder, a little bit, a little bit more of a pluck to what I was hitting. He's like, yeah, just do that. I'm like, all right. So the bass solo is just me playing like the same exact groove I was playing for the last 8 minutes, but now it's just a little bit louder and it counts as a bass solo. I'm like, that's cool.
Well, you could always take the Red Hot Chili Peppers approach, and Flea feels like he's soloing all the time in the songs.
I'm definitely not
really
a flashy
powerful.
guy, so.
Yeah, it's a really powerful bass lines that he puts in there.
Oh, yeah. And I love Flea. I love some Chili Peppers for sure. That's one of the things that when we watched some videos the other week, we saw Ellen, the 10-year-old bass player, playing some Flea. I was like, oh man,
Oh, she is
good
the
energy.
she is the next Flea.
Yeah, at that age, if she's playing like that, for sure, she's going to be amazing. And there's a bunch of the musicians that we watch on YouTube. There's so many good resources out there. Whether it's for entertainment, just to watch people play, or whether it's to learn how to play things. There's just endless resources out there, and that's why we love to go over a bunch of them here to see what we have. Sometimes we're just jamming, noodling around like we are today, going over some concepts, but also trying to keep things relatively light in terms of just kind of screwing around, you might say.
That's why we talk.
Yeah, you kids, you screw around too much. But we go over some good concepts that way. And again, I have my keyboard is set up, but you're not hearing it, so I can get the meticulous stuff if we need to talk key stuff. But in this case, we can go back and forth, and I can be demonstrating the guitar stuff, and Tony can be demonstrating the keys for us.
I can play what Glenn tells me to.
Yep. And I like that visualizer too. I mean, I really am a fan of how that comes across. Like, it's definitely cool the way that the notes fly up, and you get firework effects and all that kind of stuff.
They just pushed out a new update. I like the fact that these developers are really, improving on it. They've added some new visuals, better 3D support. If I can ever get my hands on one of those RTX cards, this thing's really going to light up.
Yep. Got to get the RTX cards happening. Some of my favorite stuff. Yeah, solid. Yeah, the particles aren't bad at all. That would be what I would be concerned about if there's like lag, where you're actually playing. But then again, it's not really as big a deal anyway, because the people who are listening, you're watching, seeing what it is. It's not like you don't need millisecond response time on where they are to know what note you're playing and to follow along with it. Be able to catch up on it.
Pretty close. I mean, it is milliseconds difference.
Nice.
I tried doing some test recordings, and if I slide the video back just a millisecond or two, it perfectly aligns.
Nice.
What would be cool is if that AI that we've been looking at that does all the visuals and the pictures could be fed from and make pictures based on the music.
See, now that's where AI should have no problem incorporating that at this point. I mean, with what we've seen from AI so far as just artwork like this, or, the music stuff that we've seen of them being able to do, telling the AI, hey, when you hear this note, make this graphic happen on this, as long as you're hearing that note, and then stop. I mean, that shouldn't be hard to get super fast response time from it happening really in real time, where it's basically playing a game of, when I hear this note, make that visual,
Yeah, if you can incorporate like the orb AI with the visual AI, and teach the orb side like mood and what different chords kind of portray in mood, and take the visual AI and utilize those moods into visuals.
Exactly.
Give me a dark picture of a forest.
That was one that I really liked, was the way that they had things organized in that way. Dark versus light, or happy, or heavy, or whatever. They had different adjectives that would just help with describing a style and get you to what you were looking for sooner.
Yeah, when you're talking music emotions, that's the ones you hear. Dark, bright. These are the terms we use to describe certain sounds. At least on the keyboard side, I have dark pianos. I have bright pianos. Then it starts to get into things like, New York Grand, or a certain type of piano.
Yeah, and for that I would see like, acoustic grand piano, or electric stage piano, or whatever. There's, a bunch of different options, but essentially they would all end up as, piano sound. But, again, the electric piano sound would be a lot different than an acoustic. And with the acoustic sound, a lot of time the concert hall versus in the studio versus, mic'd inside the piano while it's open versus what, stand-up piano with, barbed wire in it or whatever. Like some people, like a prepared piano, they'll do stuff like that. Like Pink Floyd has some early stuff where they
have one of those.
they have a prepared piano where it's got just all kinds of stuff going on in there, where I'm talking, woodworking screws that they drilled through or whatever, just all kinds of random whatever in there. Yeah. Nice.
called cicada piano.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what the fuck it's. It's a combination of like a piano with that barbed wire you were describing.
Yep.
Then they've got like the shifted ones.
That's got an X-File sound to it.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's just hard to keep up with that syncopation that it does.
Yeah. That's where you try to go to like half speed or quarter speed.
And that's my honky tonk.
Yep. For me, there's too much reverb usually on Hockey Tonk, but it works though.
Yeah, honky tonk's only really good for those kind of like what we were doing earlier, like the. So it could work for a riff like that.
For that, I usually just bounce on the root and the 5 and the octave. Very cool. And that's where we get that little bounce. And again, for this, I'm just using the root 5 and octave. So in this case, I don't even care if that's major or minor. Like those two chords could both be major, they could both be minor. One could be major, the other could be minor. If I'm just doing that root 5 octave, it really doesn't matter. It could be major, it could be minor. And I could go back and forth between those two all day. So as long as I can hear, okay, that first note is that one, second one is that one, I could just sit on those 3 notes all day, which is actually just 2 notes, but root, 5, and octave, and even the 5 below. And that's where, whether just the root and the 5, and if you throw in the thirds, then you figure out whether you're major or minor, because the thirds you got to know if you're major or minor, because that's the defining factor is the third. So
Yeah,
got to figure that out.
Pretty much saying it. Yo,
Yep.
Luke. Hey, Jason. And I think he brought Kalani with him.
Nice. In this case, that would just be the root and the third,
And there's a dog.
and the root and the third for the other one as well. So those are both just majors. In that case, B major and A major. Which again, I would throw it an octave higher if I was doing it as a chord here.
Oh, he's trying to go back to that movie. You can't escape it, huh?
Well, it's not even going back to that necessarily, because that would be more if I'm getting the slides in there. But it's more that if by hitting just the root and that high third, you really are defining that key, because that nice isolated low note is definitely like, okay, that's the root for sure. And then that high note being the third just tells you, okay, it's definitely major in this case, or it's definitely minor in that case.
Well, it makes me want to go doop de doop doop de doop 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 de doop doop.
It does.
de doop doop.
And I almost can't help it too. And then I start slide.
All
and
the
at first,
giant people say doop
Did you? Did you? And I was starting from like the 5th fret and up to the 12th fret, but actually the way that we heard it on the album is actually from the 8th fret to the 13th fret, and then back down from up there, which is the 16th. So I'm going, they're all major though. So that was just, doing that slide is where, okay, that sounds like it does on the record. But then again, wherever I put it, it's just, okay, well, that's a major chord because we're playing the root and then a third up above.
Well, and the way it sounded with the fretless, on our last show.
Yeah, the slide, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you. And that's where, like, you got to be careful where you're stopping on that too, because with the fretless, you're trying to end up in a spot where you're the two notes that you're hitting are actually a fret apart, and down here, a fret apart means they're this far apart. But once you get up here, they're only this far apart. So you got to be ready to, bring them in tighter together as you get up here, because the frets are so much closer up here than they are down towards the end of the neck.
That's one thing with the guitars and the basses, where your muscle memory has to adapt to the neck, where I could only imagine if my keyboard started to get smaller and smaller as I went up. I mean, it's tough enough, like, getting comfortable on the extreme sides, but if it got smaller or bit wider on the sides, that would be a mind fuck.
That would be trouble, yeah. And that's the thing, is it's actually, once you get used to it, it's not so bad, because again, it's more it's made up for by the simplicity of, if this is a major shape, major chord, movable E shape on a guitar, because this is on a bass now, but on a guitar, this would be the shape. If I took that and I move it up 2 frets, that's just going from, in this case, that would be a D major, and this would be an E major. On a guitar, that would be a G major and an A major, just as far as what it would look like. But it's the same claw. I'm hitting the same string, same relative positions, but as I move up the neck, they're getting closer and closer together. So once I go an octave higher, I don't really have room for my big hands anymore. So like if I'm trying to play a major chord and I'm way up here, I almost can't play it. Like I almost have to go with simplified chords anyway, because I need to figure out just a triad so I could play just these 3 and like be able to do that, for example, if that's what I was looking for. But that's where triads, like that other thing we were talking about before, come in so handy. The triads are different on the guitar than they would be on the bass, but if you were looking at the fattest 4 strings on a guitar are the same as a 4-string bass. So in that case, you could find any chord that you can play using just the fattest 4 strings on the guitar. You can translate that directly onto the bass without having to change anything. And you can still, you wouldn't want to play it as a chord, because again, you would be hitting notes that just sound too close together and they sound very muddy. And it just rings out like a blah, 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 because it's just too much altogether. But if you wanted to get that sound, you could just play the root and the third, that octave above. And you could even play, if you wanted to, a 7th up there to get the slightly more interesting sound. But even there, it gets muddy as well. But that's where you're playing a 3rd and a 7 on the top there, as well as the root. So it does get a little messy when you start doing that.
Well, when you're playing the notes separately, you don't have that muddy problem.
Right.
If you're playing individual notes. It's
Exactly.
only when you're trying to play them at the same time.
And that's where it's important for positioning wise. So like knowing that, like I'm saying, that major chord position, knowing that and knowing that this is the root, this is the 5th, this is another root, and this is a 3rd. Like knowing that those are what those 4 notes are means that I can, if I wanted to do an arpeggio, if I wanted to do a root, a 3rd, and a 5, I could just hit these 3. And I'm hitting a root, a high 3rd, and a 5 down here. So if you were doing that on a piano, you'd be hitting, at this point, this is an E, so this would be, an E, and then the 5th of E, and then the 3rd way up there, the octave higher, E major. And it's only major because that top one is there. If I pulled it back 1, it would be E minor. So just using those 3 notes, you can define whether it's a major or minor. And again, that's where triads come in, but it's also important on a bass. If you're playing the notes together at the same time, if they're too close together, they sound too muddy. So but knowing where they are, knowing the chord shapes is good, because then you know where your chord tones are you can get to. So like root, major 3rd, 5, octave. You'll hear that all the time. In this case, this would be in E. So I was, so that was E major. So E, and then the major 3rd is the A flat, and then or G sharp, I should say. A. Well, you know what it is. Those, yeah. And if I wanted to do that, then a whole step up on the bass, all it is move up 2 frets, and it's the same thing. But on the guitar, on the piano, you have to figure out, is it this sharp and flat? Is it that sharp and flat?
Yeah, you're fucking me up now in F sharp like major.
Exactly. But if you go up, even if you go up one further though, you get to that G. That's easier.
Yeah, G. I got
And
the
then-
G spot.
Yep. And then a whole step up from there is the A. But again, in my case, all I'm doing is going up 2 frets and doing the same move, essentially the same pattern, where you have to again recalculate each time because it's on a keyboard. But
Oh yeah. The difference between that G to that A or that F sharp right before the G, like that one's tricky
Yeah.
on the keyboard.
yeah, and I didn't mean to jump to that. I was actually thinking I was a string lower, where that would have been an A to a B, which isn't
But
much better, I guess. But
it's good to emphasize, like, I should be practicing that.
everyone should, yeah. And that's getting comfortable with all the different keys for sure. One of the easy ways is the circle of fifths exercise.
You want to be able to go up and down, say, a scale that way, like
Yep.
E major, F.
F minor, yep.
F
What I would do
sharp.
is try to go through as far as I would pick a key, right? So like take the key of let's say C major, just so that it's all white notes, right? For this point. But if you took that key of C, playing the triads, you'd be doing C major, so you'd do a root 3/5 octave, and then you do minor for the D, and you go back, and then minor for an E, and then major for an F, major for a G, minor for an A, minor for the B, and then back to the C again. And by going through that, you have the sound of the scale already kind of in your head, because you've already heard, like, you start with the scale up and down, like if you're playing in C, you just do a run through the scale.
Hey, little Raj.
first,
yes,
like, by doing
I
the-
am left-handed, Raj. That's why it looks like that.
And me, I am right-handed, so I'm playing decent.
Yes, he is my right-hand man, and I got whatever's left over.
That works. And right now I got the bass before I had the guitar. We're switching back and forth a little bit here and there. And he has the keys going for us, because I left the power for my keys somewhere else, which is not a good thing.
See, I want to do that shift. F major. Oh wow, F is just as easy as G, huh?
Yep. The trick with F is that you got that B flat in there if you get there. F sharp.
Oh man, this one's gonna fuck me up. I think it's G sharp or it might be A flat, but that one takes some practice. But then the A gets easy again.
Yep.
There's only a few that are really tricky when it comes to piano. Like that G sharp, trying to do G sharp major, takes a moment to register, like which blackies what, which, versus like the ones that are pretty straight up, like the E. The E, you only got to deal with one. The F, you don't even have to deal with any.
Mm-hmm.
The G, you don't have to deal with any. The A is kind of like the EE, there's only one.
Yep.
Those are the nice guys.
Yep. And it actually brings up an important point, because that's where, with a lot of the way the chord is designed, let me go back to C major here, just so that it's all white notes on the meticulous. And we have meticulous going there. So it would be, like you're saying, if we had all white notes, I know you guys don't hear that, but that's like we're looking at that with the C. So if we're in the key of C, we had that C major, and then if we just moved everybody up to the next white note that's in C, then that's the D minor, and then just sliding up to the next one, knowing that there's no sharps or flats in the key of C, we could just literally take that whole claw,
Yeah, it
and
works
without
for
having
so
to
many.
really think about it. That's where getting comfortable with the key is important, because in that key, there are no black notes, so it's all just sliding that same 1-3-5, essentially, that little hand grip, I would call it, as a 1-3-5. Now, if you wanted to go through and do the inversions, how would that work? Right? Like if you did the first inversion, E, G with the C on top, and you wanted to walk that all the way up through all of the same thing applies, where you're still just moving that claw up one white note each time. And this way, you didn't have to do any complicated math or figuring stuff out. You just, by using that claw and knowing what notes are in the scale that you're playing in, you're able to just move that claw right up.
That is why I'm always like thinking about the inversion I'm in and how it's either going to get in my way or help me where I want to go.
And knowing which one is the root and which one is the third and which one is the five, that's also important with triads.
Yeah, certain inversions on certain chords really work nice. So if I start with A in first inversion, you know, C, E, A really lends itself if I'm going to go to a F. So
yeah, I like
that's
that.
a perfect inversion to start with. But even root inversion, go to F, is still just a hop away. But that has a very different effect. Versus when you're doing that E to F shift with this inversion, the E to F really plays a nice kind of melody behind it. You hear it a lot better when you're hearing the A on top of it.
Yep.
Versus when I play it this way, there's no A on top of it. The E to F is the top note.
Yep, it sounds like just a closer move, but you still hear the movement of the underlying chord beneath it, which is cool.
And it doesn't have the same kind of synchronicity that it does with the A on top. With that inversion, it really it fills out that 2-chord progression.
And it actually gives the bass the opportunity to come down from that A.
Yes, the bass gets to do the other side.
I can basically walk through that G the whole way through each time. And that's by walking through that little note in the middle there. Gets us back and forth. And then I was just walking to the octaves on top. Because that's always...
If you want to change there, C to G. Works really nice.
Yeah. And then you can also fall back to that F to think about it.
Oh, yes. That's exactly what I do. You and me have a lot of the... That's exactly what I would do, is use that F as just a fuck with them. Like, oh, you think we're about to go into the next measure? No. One more note, one more chord.
It's a little hangout spot, yep.
Yeah.
It's about to hang out and think about it. Where are we going now?
Well, I like to try to inject chords like that every now and then, especially around choruses, where, you know, how the chorus resolves. Sometimes it's just that open moment where you say one or two words and boom, the moral of the song story
comes right out. And some songs, they just have that one little phrase, that one little hook or whatever, and sometimes you build that around that, and then that gets it all right in there.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the bridges that really steal the thunder and get the hookiest parts, sometimes get the most memorable lines.
They make it happen.
Choruses have
Now,
really kind of taken a back seat, you know, in the last 30 years. Choruses have become less and less, I guess, important. It's like the whole songs are choruses these days.
Yeah. Now, we were watching one the other day that was about a new guitar. This is, I think the video was older actually. It was from a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
But
this
the
thing
guitar with the
is
snap out, yeah.
state of the art.
It has the pop the pickups right out and be able to swap them. So you can pull out a single coil pickup and pop in a humbucker, whatever. You can make whatever swaps you need to totally change the character of the guitar without having to take the strings off, without having to do anything crazy. You're basically just pulling the pickups out from the back, and the back opens up magnetically. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and all you
Let me see.
guitarists out there, we are going to have a guitar night like we did our bass night. And if you got a
Mhm.
cool guitar or your guitar can do shit like this, I definitely want to talk about some of that.
For sure. Let's see, maybe this one.
Yeah, guitar modding is something of a constant discussion in the back.
Yep. And in this case, it was the channel is Daryl Braun Guitar, which I subscribe to over here, and he this did come out 3 years ago, and it's had a couple million views since then. The most advanced guitar that nobody knows about is the description. It's like a 10-minute video, but it really walks through puts the guitar through its paces and kind of shows you what's going on. But it's got an aluminum. I called it a plate kind of, but like the body. If you were to slice the body down the middle longwise, and then put an aluminum plate in the middle, like that's kind of the frame that the guitar works around. You'll see though. We'll get that. Bring this up and see what we got here.
It looks like it was built by NASA.
Yeah, definitely. And let me see. Let me know how the volume sounds when we get this going.
The channel, you guys. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today we are checking out a legitimate super guitar. This is something so unique and so different that I can't wait to share it with you. So today we're lucky enough to have one in the studio. So let's find out what makes this guitar so interesting. Now, if you're a case junkie, you will not be disappointed. We've got this beautiful crimson fabric covering the case with protective black ends and stitched Relish logo. So let's find out what's inside. All right, let's check it out. So this is the Merry One from Relish Guitars, and underneath the quilted maple top here are some very, very interesting and game-changing features. Now, without giving away all the secrets, we've also got some very, very interesting looking accessories in the case, which we'll get to shortly. And of course, the certificate of authenticity. It says this is an original Swiss-made guitar by Relish Guitars, Switzerland. Designed, produced, and assembled in Lucerne, Switzerland. So what exactly can we expect from a Swiss-made guitar? Well, these are the same people that designed and perfected the most intricate and beautiful timepieces known to humankind. These are the same people who designed the most compact and useful tool of all time, the Swiss Army knife. And you can't think Swiss without high-end cheese and chocolate. So whether it comes to watches, knives, chocolate, or any other endeavor that requires precision, the Swiss are gonna do it upright. So here's a close-up shot of the Relish headstock, also finished in that really beautiful figured maple. Now the neck itself is a very comfortable modern C shape, made out of maple and bamboo on the fingerboard, so that's pretty cool. When we turn the guitar to its side, you'll notice something very different about it as well. There is a metal frame that goes around the entire perimeter of the guitar. And when we look on the back, you don't see any bolts holding the neck on. You don't see any control cavity cover. It's completely clean. And when you tap on it, clearly a hollow body. All right, time to get to the bottom of this. No access points to the neck joint, no access points to the electronics. What were these guys thinking? Well, why make access points when you can simply do this? How cool is that? So the back is held on by magnets, and there's a really good reason for that design. So here's a close-up look at what makes this whole design possible. We are looking at the aluminum frame that holds the whole guitar together. So here obviously is the neck joint, which is beautifully hidden when the back cover is on, and obviously something really unique is going on with these pickups as well. So here's a wider shot of the internal aluminum frame, and around the perimeter you can see the magnets that hold on the back. Let's take a closer look in at the electronics. Now, as you guys can see, the strings themselves also go through this aluminum frame. So the neck is bolted to the frame, the pickups, the strings, which means the sustain should be amazing. So clearly this is an amazing design. Really reminds me of something that NASA or perhaps Boeing would dream up. But there is one more game-changing feature Let's check it out now. So why design a guitar that can have the back removed in literally 1 second? Well, here's why. So as you guys can see, swapping pickups could not be easier. All you do is you have your pickup, which is mounted on a ring with magnets and pins. Slap it in, ready to rock. So it doesn't matter if you're recording a metal track in 1 minute and jazz the next, swapping pickups literally takes seconds. So just how fast do you think we can change pickups? Well, let's find out.
Dinner. It's more than just a meal you make every night. It's a chance to slow down,
So yeah, that's a quick pickup change. No soldering, no nothing. While you're playing on the neck pickup, swap the bridge out. While you're playing on the bridge, put a new neck in, whatever you want. That just illustrates how easy it is to change pickups. Now the guys at Relish will mount any pickups that you send them. So if you have a favorite set, they'll mount them into the quick connects and away you go. You can add them to the collection. Or if you want, say, P90s that are humbucker size, get them to mount it up and you can put a P90 in the bridge with a humbucker in the neck or vice versa. The possibilities are endless. Now you guys may have noticed there's an adjustment on the back of each pickup mount. This is for setting the height. So all you have to do is turn one way or the other and it will raise or lower the pickup. So you can dial in just the height you like. Now as for the controls on this model, which is the Mary 1, we've got a 3-way switch for your humbuckers, master volume, master tone. Then we've got a toggle for the piezo pickup. So in the forward position, it's just your humbuckers. In the middle position, it's both, it's a blend. And in the back, it's just the piezo. You've got the separate volume and a push-pull pot for a mid-boost. All right, so let's check out some of the tones that we can get with the Mary 1. Now, as you guys have seen, I've got a low output set of Seymour Duncans, and I've also got a set of bare knuckle pickups. So we'll do a comparison in the next video, but for now, I just want to show you some of the stock sounds. So let's close this baby back up, line up the magnets. There we go, all enclosed. And we're gonna plug into my Blue Angel amp, mic'd up with the Sennheiser E906 and Earthworks SR25. Let's check out some tones.
I really like that.
Really nice tone.
He wasn't kidding about the sustain also. I hadn't thought of that, but listen to no signal noise at all.
Overdrive.
And it does look like it has nice action.
So those are a
Now
few of
we're
the stock sounds that you can dial in with the Relish Mary 1, but of course the whole point of this guitar is the fact that you can make it sound like anything in mere seconds. Now as for the overall body shape, you get a modern looking guitar, but without being too over the top. So obviously the body shape is unique to Relish, and this inset kind of quilted curly maple top kind of looks like a guitar within a guitar, which is really cool. And the stock pickups obviously have white covers on them as well, so it gives a really cool aesthetic. Now this guitar balances on a strap extremely well, no headstock dive at all. It does have a little bit of heft to it, so it's not like an ultra light instrument, but it hangs off a strap really well, feels great up against your body, and plays wonderfully. Now obviously this is a high-end instrument priced to compete with Gibson, with Paul Reed Smith, with Sir, with Tom Anderson, with Music Man, all those guitars, but with a feature set that really can't be matched. So I'll drop a link to this guitar in the video description below for people who are into specs. You guys can check it out from top to bottom, but of course it's available in a bunch of different colors, in a bunch
Yeah, just a beautiful guitar. I mean, looking at the style of
of
it,
different exotic wood.
get him in a better spot there. Looking at the style of it and seeing, the versatility is the big thing. The how versatile that is ridiculous. Like being able to pop out the pickups on the fly like that. And to me, the question was, I play an SG, and that's most of what I do, but I can also see how some people, they do have just a whole arsenal of guitars. Some people even bring 6-7 guitars on stage with them and have to sit there and tune 6-7 guitars up. And I get that certain songs, it's you need that look or that specific sound for that song to work right. But also, if you had the ability to just bring 2 or 3 guitars and then be able to just pop pickups in and out on the one to get the sounds that you need to get.
Popping pickups in between songs
Mm-hmm.
is reason alone to think like, holy shit, I could change my pickups to play a different song.
Mm-hmm.
That's a feature that
Without having to
no
retune,
other
without pulling the
guitar
strings
offers.
off. Yeah, and that's one of the things. This is a couple of years old, this video, so it's possible that others have come out with models like this since then. But this was I saw this a while back, and then it came up again in my feed recently. And I was like, I got to check that out because
These guys must have got the other guitar manufacturers rethinking. Like, wow, I guess we got comfortable with the 20th century guitar building, and there has been no major innovation with guitars till I saw something like this, where it's like, wow, they're treating it like a computer almost, like modular.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's one of the things I do like a lot about it is that, so many times I see people that, I got this guitar from my buddy, whatever, and they go to open it up and you can almost see like rats and insects jumping out of the thing. There's just just a whole nest in there of whatever had been the wiring at some point. But you saw how clean the inside of this was. Like this could literally never get that way unless you started stashing stuff in the back there. Forget a ham sandwich back in there or something.
Well, the acoustic with a penny in it.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm, yep. You can get them out. It's just a matter of the way you kind of gotta shake it, just the right way. Got to know just how to do it. But yeah, that would be annoying. But yeah, get that little bit of a rattle happening.
But
That would work.
That is some innovative instrument design. Like, I see this as the future for guitar thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guitarists are modifying and drop tuning more than ever to get that different sound, and this kind of design opens up the doors.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, one of the other videos that we're probably not going to watch the video today, but we can take a look at just a screen grab of it. This is from our buddy at New Jazz over there, Oliver Prehn. Yep.
The
Yep.
hands guy.
Exactly.
He uses Palmolive.
It sure seems like it, right?
His
Let's see
hands
here.
definitely are smooth.
This was the one that we were looking at here, where this is one that's just an easy jazz piano improvisation. I think it's a 251 in a minor, and it's from New Jazz is the channel. which we've subscribed to because he's got a lot of great information. There's such great information, and in this case, it's just about using a similar hand grip. He's a big fan of trying to make things simple to work with. So by looking at those 3 chords right there, the A minor 7 flat 5 is the 2, and then the D7, the D dominant 7 is the 5.
Yeah, and the G minor is interesting.
And the G minor is where we land, yeah. And that's where the grip that he's got it pointing to right now, if you notice that the notes that he has kind of written out for the right hand, that's on a D, a G, A, B, and a D. And it's in blue, so that would be the ones that he was playing while the A minor 7 flat 5 is happening. So he's looking at that as like a G triad, sort of, with an A in the middle there. But you see how he has it labeled as, he's got the step is showing you the 2, 5, 1, the chords are the A minor 7 flat 5, the D7, and the G minor. And then underneath that he has triads, and he's saying this is a G triad that he's focusing on during the A minor 7 flat 5, because he wants to use this same hand grip that he has right here with that D, G, A, B, and D, and be able to reuse that when we go to the D7 by anchoring on the B flat. And so he's using like the B flat, I think the B flat, D, E, F perhaps, and B flat, to get that same kind of a hand grip, the same positioning, and then moving it over, and then to the G minor. But the main idea is that taking something like a 2-5-1 like this, like a little jazz thing that you put together, it's just 2-5-1, it's just a little thing that you can run around with, but it's giving you practice with a minor 7 flat 5 chord, a dominant 7 chord, and a minor chord. Where if you're doing it in a major key, you would be dealing with a minor 7, a dominant, and a major chord. So it gives you practice with all the different types of chords, and you're getting those different sounds in your ear. But it's also a good way to work with the different positions and work with different hand grips. And again, he's a fan of getting a grip that's comfortable and using it here, here, and here to work through a song, rather than changing from like this inversion to that inversion, or worrying about, now we're playing in C, now we're playing in G, now we're playing in F. It's more about where to focus the hand grip and where to kind of anchor things. But let's see, let me see, just jump to another little spot here. See what he's doing on the, for the G, he's basically using, for the G minor, he's using a D grip. So you can see how he's got his thumb on the A, from the A and the A, with the D, E, and F sharp in the middle. So he's using basically the same kind of a grip. And this way, when you're doing little motifs, when you're doing little, you get a little idea together and you play, a little whatever it is that you play. Now, when you shift keys, you don't have to totally re-engineer or refigure things out. You can play the same motif in a different place.
Oh, I think you had me do this one before.
I think so.
I think those are the notes.
Yep, it's basically the A's on the top and the bottom in the right hand, and then D, E, and F sharp in the middle. Where the other part that we were looking at had the D's on the outside, and in the middle it was G, A, and B. And this was during that A minor 7 flat 5 part.
This one's nice and easy.
Yep. And during the middle part, he's got the anchor on the F, with the
Someone's
B flat,
always
C, and D.
effing with me.
But you only have to deal with the one flat, the B flat.
It's not too uncomfortable, but compared to the other two, like this one is
The tricky one.
well, yeah, that B flat again. B's an asshole all over the place.
But now if we're looking at that, like as far as the triads go, that first one, we were hanging out kind of with the G, and we were anchored on the D's, right? So we had the D's with the G, A, and B, doing that A minor 7 stuff when we were hanging out. And for me, the A minor 7 flat 5 is looking at basically, that has that E flat in there as well.
And this is why I love his videos. Like literally, I see those dots, and I'm like, okay,
It's like right there.
I'm gonna have to. And sometimes it really is easier for me to see what the sharps are. Like it's not that I'm uncomfortable playing them. It's trying to memorize which ones are sharp in whatever key I happen to be in.
Yep.
It's like trying to, what we were talking about the other night, memorizing 1,000 lyrics. Those 7 or scales that you really got to deal with, memorizing which ones, the black keys and the white keys, is the ultimate challenge.
Yep. This is New Jazz. This is his channel. for Oliver Prehn, and he's just got tons of videos. This one was from 4 years ago, and it's one that I definitely saw some time ago, but it is such an important concept. Both the 251 being an important thing to learn for jazz, because 251 is used all over the place in jazz, and it's just a good... I like 251 starting in a major key because that actually gives you a minor, a dominant, and a major. So you're working with all three of the shapes. When it comes to guitar, that's giving you all three of the different, three of the major chord shapes that you'd be dealing with, and then dealing with the different inversions, different places to use the triads, different feels for each one, as part of the exploration.
Okay, G minor has the flatted B. That's the one that's...
It has the flatted B and the flatted E.
Very... Again, feels dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Minor should feel dark.
Well, when that G comes in, it makes it really...
Brightens it
feel
a
that
little
way.
bit.
Well, no, it's the A to D that sounds bright, man.
Oh, yeah?
That's bright to me.
Yep.
This just says... this says mood swing.
Almost to the point where I would want to hang out on that G minor for two measures for impact. So do the first one, the second one, and then hang out there like, ooh. It's like you got to hang out there and think about what you've done.
I'm in trouble.
Writing a minor song, minor 251.
But I'm not a minor.
Minor 7, flat 5, D7, G minor.
See, I haven't even injected the sevens into that at that point.
Right, but again, with those hand
Even-
grips, though, and with those hand grips, or with what he's trying to show us with those hand grips, is to try to keep it simple and try to keep it to something that makes sense, to be able to just shift from here to there by just kind of moving a few notes rather than trying to rethink the whole thing,
That holding on that G suggestion is really good.
It's like powerful, right? When you get down there.
Yeah, it totally gives it like a perfect opportunity to actually sing the important line. Or you could bounce it. You know, and you could cut that hold on that G, you could cut it in half and actually come back in a little bit of a... shift going up, up to the other.
Yeah. Hanging out in the C. I like it.
Yeah, A and D work together, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, C and D.
Oh yeah.
Doing it a little different, but
See, I hear that going from a D to an E at that one, but that's because the E would be the third of that C.
yeah, the E is the one I was trying. It has the same kind of flavor as the A progression, but the A, when it goes to the G minor, it has much more mood.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the equivalent on the D would be.
On the E?
Yeah, it is an E minor. It just doesn't have the same change that the G does. The G's not supposed to be minor on the other one. The E here is minor on D minor.
One thing that can make a difference also is where I play it. Like if I play an E minor 7, I should say, up here, versus playing it down here, where I get that low E fat in there. Sounds very different than it is out here. That's the same kind of thing. I think I can play it again up here. That's the same as down here, but an octave higher. So you get that more ringing.
And now we're playing in E.
That was E minor, yeah.
And you know what we were talking about earlier, that's where you can bounce on like a single chord if you and only 2 chords.
Yep. But it is E minor and D major, which I like. Starting from the minor one and landing on the major one just feels like you're going from a pensive or sad place to a happy place right there.
That's really where I like D major is when I'm in E. Like D major works great when you're in E minor.
Sure.
It's that note right under your root.
A whole step behind. Gotta remember that minor one on the way back. That's where you can get away with a sus. Sus 2. What if it was major? Maybe up there.
got a nice kind of melancholy. Tell me you're not feeling compelled to go to the sea. Which is where we started. That's where we started earlier.
I like it.
We've gone
From the,
full circle.
Full circle. But it is definitely, I love starting in that minor, because again, what we're thinking about, starting with that minor, for me at least, I'm thinking about that being the 6. And then we were going to the 5 and the 4, which would both be major. So that would be the 6 minor that we started with. That one's major. That one's major. This one could even be dominant, but it doesn't have to be. When we're going from the minor, we could just go from the minor to the major, to the major. Or we could go from the minor to the dominant, to the major. And again, it's also about the bounce. Sorry. I jumped right as you went. But one thing about that is, for me picking, like not even using a pick, but just keeping my, as if I have.
You're getting that off your fingers?
Yeah, that's all fingers. It's actually fingernails, so it's basically coming across with the back of the fingernails going down, and the thumbnail going up. So like if if you're not even hitting notes, it's very open and loose. So I don't have to worry about, I'm not holding a pick. If I drop a pick, I'm not, oh my god, I don't have anything in my hand. But I'm just, and I can kind of keep my hand angled a little bit so that I'm really striking several strings at the same time, rather than making it like using all the fingers to go across each string one by one. I'm kind of hitting 3 and 4 strings at a time when I'm doing the way down, and the way back is just the thumbnail. But it keeps the wrist nice and loose. And if I'm doing like a down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, that kind of thing.
And you can do Prince's Kiss.
There you go. That kiss.
Yeah, and Aerosmith has one called Walking the Dog, where
Sure.
I'll show you where you're walking the dog, and that is actually the hook of the song, is just a quick little palm mute.
Yep. But that's what I like about that. And depending on what chord you want to hit, like that's just that little minor or minor 7, if you do it that way. But I can bring it out pretty loud if I really strike into it. Now if that was a pick, that would be more like.
Oh yeah, I can totally hear the difference.
Now also with the pick, when you're doing these, you really can hear it.
And we were talking about picks last night. SR has like a jar of them, and we were talking about like the thin ones versus the thicker ones, and
I bet he doesn't have one like this. That's
getting
a
the
rubber pick this
flappiness.
big. It's a rubber pick that bends a lot, but it also like the idea was for
That's a thick son of a bitch.
it's monster thick, but it's also like flexible, so I can like bend the sucker in half, almost.
So it's more flappy.
And it's also when you hit it and come back, it's an immediate mute. So I could, but it's also so
Does
fat
that
that
pinch.
you can barely get in there. But I had it really for using on the bass. But just coming across, like it does have a softer feel, like not as soft as coming across like with the flesh of my finger, because that's the other thing I'll do is just use that's just my thumb going back and forth on it with the side of the thumb, or the side and I guess, the top of the pad there. But I can also do the same thing I was just doing with just the thumb. Sometimes the upstrokes are a little louder though. But that's just basically keeping the picking hand, or I just have it kind of like anchored on the guitar at the bottom, and I'm just using the thumb itself.
I think it sounds nice with just your natural picks.
It's usually a lot quieter. So like if I was playing through an amp, you'd probably notice it doesn't dig in as much as it would. But if I did want to dig, and that's just again the backs of the fingernails. But again, it's to not wear down the flesh, because if I do just sit there and finger pick the whole time, and I go to rehearsal and I go do this and I go do this on bass and I go do this on guitar, like I can wear my fingers out that way.
Has there ever been a time where you play a song with a pick when you're performing, but you record without it? When
Not really. I almost never use a pick, period. But when I do, not really a pick guy. I was part of it was ever, yeah, part of it was the speed. I'd never really built up the speed over the years because I never sat down and did the little exercises. But I have been doing them more in recent years. So like I can pick faster if I want to, but it's not super fast. And a lot of the exercises are just silly things like, and trying to get all of those clean and just keep that, and then you slide up a fret and do the same thing.
That's a good exercise to get better at picking, for sure.
Exactly. And it also builds up the hand strength. It kind of strengthens the fretting hand and gets the finger independence, because you're doing like individual moves. You're doing from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4.
To the picking hand. The picking hand has to get into the...
Exactly. They have to get back. They have to work together. And that was the biggest issue getting started with the pick, was the coordination between the hands, knowing, okay, pick it at this moment while fretting it at that moment, and then mute it at this moment. And, which hand is doing what is where you got to figure it all out. But it's the kind of stuff where, again, when I start doing fingerstyle, it's a lot easier, because coming from the bass, where I really need to keep 4 of the strings that I'm not playing muted, when I'm not playing them, I got used to just basically having my hand, especially my picking hand, like hanging out on the actual strings, and in between strings even. Like my thumb being in between the fattest 2 strings is very common, because that way it's muting the one that it's kind of leaning on this side, and it's muting the one that it's leaning on that side. So and I can actually do 3 if I want to, but usually I'll just do those 2, and then that just leaves me 4 strings to deal with on the guitar. So if I'm doing little chords, I can just hold like the little chord shapes, and that's enough for a triad and a root on top. For major or minor, any kind of chords you're going to try to do, you can make stuff happen in there. But by keeping those fat 2 strings muted, that kind of keeps it where the chords are staying in a higher register. So it's focusing on me not being in the way of a bass or a low playing keyboard or guitar player who might be in a different register that I'd be interfering with. So that's where I can play higher, like we were talking about before. With like little chord shapes, those little triads like that, that's a huge thing that we should get into more another time, is a triad lesson on guitar, because even just those 3, building off the caged system and where where those chords come from, that one comes from that chord.
Pick your night, triads, big fan of them.
Yep, that one comes from there, and the other one comes from the next shape over, the C shape, which is one that I never really used much, because the C shape itself is more, it's anchored with the pinky on, like in this case I'm anchored with the pinky on the 12th fret, and so it's like a 12, 11, 9, 10 would be those 4. And it's a nice sounding chord, because it's a natural stack, I would call it, because it's got the root on the bottom, and then the 3rd, then the 5th, and then the octave. So it sounds like it should. And you can just slide that whole thing around. So like once I'm in that position, I'm fine, but I never got good at changing into that position, because that's the movable C shape. And I basically learned everything, or did everything, with the movable E shape and A shape. And using the extension of the E shape on the top is kind of the D shape, keeping notes or keeping the chord higher.
You're so weird. You're weird.
But those are a good start, because if you can get fast at changing between those 2, even on the same fret, like at the 3rd fret, there's the E shape and then the A shape. Now you're going back and forth between a G and a C chord. So if you can very quickly, just by bouncing from one string down with those 2 claws, go back and forth between 2 major chords.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the A F inversion, and depending, it became that convenient bounce like that for me.
Yep. The other one that's big though is going from that same chords I was just doing, but doing it this way. I'm playing what would be 5 4 3 3 on those, and then if I just bar across those three, where I just basically flatten the ring finger, now I'm playing the other chord, so I can, just by flattening the ring finger down and keeping these three in place, I can very quickly bounce between those two chords without having to actually change the claws that much, because you're just going from hitting these three right there to those three. So that's one of those moves that once you get that down, and you're like, holy crap, and then you can do that anywhere. So anytime you want to go from this chord to that chord and back, you can just drop that finger back. So it makes it very easy to just kind of shift. And again, that's not learning which ones are sharps and flats and worrying about which ones, I know that in whichever of these chords that I'm playing, the bottom one is the root, then the third, and then the 5. So it's also a good natural stack with that. And when you do that one, you're doing 5 and then root and then the third on top. So knowing which inversions is helpful too, because then if you're doing a little solo piece and you're going to end at that chord, then you know which tone you're really, focused on, or where you want to hit and then kind of bounce back to.
It's nice having a target.
Definitely. And that's one of those concepts that didn't hit me until recently, really. And one of the videos I watched, yeah, one of the videos was on specifically target, what's it called? Soloing to target tones, I think was the idea, where basically, okay, we're going to solo and we're going to focus on targeting the 5. So like, you might be playing in the key of C, but the idea is you're going to solo, and instead of always starting and ending and landing on that C, you might start on that C, but as soon as you're feeling that next pause, you're going to pause on the G instead. So you're going to hang out on the 5 while the chord is going underneath, and you're going to focus on doing lines that start and end on the G. And in this case, in this way, what you're learning is not just how to start and end and focus on that G, but you're also learning kind of a mixolydian sound, because G mixolydian is the C major scale starting from G. So that's where that kind of fits in. So you could just be playing all the white notes, but starting, ending, and focusing on the G itself, and that'll give you a mixolydian sound because of the fact that you have that, instead of the F sharp, you've got the F in there.
Yeah, and when you're doing target practice with your instrument, solo target practice, and taking that approach and where to send your solo, you got a lot more options there than chord target practicing. Like for me, it's just about like, what key am I actually in? Come to find out, I'm not in the key I think I am, apparently.
Yeah,
with a lot of these examples.
Sometimes it's because of an inversion that you're in, like they're using an inverted chord, and even though it looks like a triad, your usual triad, the note that's being emphasized by the bass or by everybody else is a different note than those, and you're like, wait, what does that mean?
And the target chord in the progression, like we saw some progressions tonight where the target chord is not your typical target chord. We started with a 2 and then went to a
5.
Is it 5? And then to a
to
1?
The 1. Yep, minor 2-5-1, and that's one again that's really big in jazz. And also when you hear it come around, it's kind of like that 1-4-5. Once you recognize that 2-5-1 and you feel it coming around, like you could literally stay in there all day. And that was one that
it kind of felt like the 5 was actually the inadvertent target, because being the little middle note, it was kind of like the constant target that you used bounce back to bounce forward, bounce back.
Yep. Now, if I were doing, let's say, a 2-5-1, and I were going to do it in, let's say we're going to do it in D. So we're going to start with the D minor, right? So that's going to be the 2 chord, is that D minor. Then the 5 chord is going to be that G, in this case, G dominant. So it's got that flat 7 in there, which makes it the 5 chord, or identifies that. And then when you come back to the 1, would basically be your C major. Or if you wanted it to be the C major 7, you'd add it in that way. So I always like that landing, because that 7 sounds really nice. So you'd be coming from the to there, to there. It just sounds nice and smooth, right? But the thing that I've realized is that you could just sit there between that 2 5, and you could just go back and forth between those all day
Yeah, and never totally resolve.
and never resolve to the 1 if you're just bouncing between those. And what I started doing then is instead of doing it,
That's where you get your half-hour jams.
yeah, and instead of going from up there to down there, I started doing it the other way where I guess I would start down from there to up there. But for this one, I guess we were doing it as a dominant. I'm just thinking that I like it actually better playing a dominant chord down on a 6-string root because it's an easier position. And that minor 7 is good up there because it's the same shape. That's the other thing, is this shape right here, where we're doing basically this bar with these 2 notes added in. If I just slide that whole thing down a string and over 2 frets this way, that's that dominant 5. So it's, even though it's the same shape as this minor 7, down here now it's a dominant 7, but it's the same shape, so I can just keep that same grip going back and forth. And then when I want to get out of it, I just go to that major 7 right behind the one I was on at the top, and that gives you a nice little resolution at the end. So I just really like that whole move.
That's something you could play in a lounge for a living.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that little 2-5-1 stuff. I mean, you could bounce that 2-5 back and forth all day. But that's also where I started with when we talked about.
Ship. You
Yeah,
could
cruise
take
ship.
like 6 months of the year and go play like that in a
Yeah.
bar on a cruise ship.
I'm tempted. Don't tempt me, man. I'll do it.
Oh, I
I'll
thought
do it.
about it. I got to go to Cozumel one year on
Nice,
the
yeah,
big
yeah.
red boat,
Mhm.
and seeing the piano guy, his gig,
Mhm.
like all he did was just play for like 2.5 hours every night. They gave him a free, for 6 months, free trip back and forth to Cozumel.
Yep. And you get some shore time when everybody's there, when everybody's off the boat. But that's the other thing, is that a lot of times with working on a cruise ship as a musician, for example, you hear horror stories about people working so many hours and having to do so many gigs a day of the same stuff and having to
Yeah,
memorize all these songs or
if
whatever.
you're
There
one
are
of the
downsides,
bands-
but
Yeah, if you're one of the bands, like you
I would
might
still do it.
actually be working your ass off every day.
yeah. But that's the other thing, is like, okay, but then when everybody, disembarks, everybody gets to wherever you're going and they hop on shore. It's like, okay, well then the crew, once you're done with whatever you're doing there, they hop, also you get shore leave. So boom, you get to go cruise around on the island, do whatever, and then come back. Okay, now you work again. Yeah, party time is right. But that's where also you learn a lot of different styles of music, because, it won't all be lounge music. It won't all be this. It might, might throw in some salsa here. You might throw in some Hungarian reggae there. So you got to be ready. And that's where I would, I would definitely vote Cousin Jeff in on any cruise ship anywhere to
Jeff-
play whatever.
Jeff would be a natural for that. Like,
Yeah,
this
exactly.
guy was basically taking requests and doing like lounge versions of Billy Joel.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Take a song and just give it a lounge jazzy kind of piano feel.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff can do that in his sleep.
Exactly. And he's done it, I'm sure.
It's got to be a pain in the ass sleeping next to him.
It's got to be. But I saw him just Monday. So, yeah, I was finally able to get out there. It was good. Hadn't been out there in a while, a couple months. So we went out there and got Jeffy on the keyboard doing a little bit of stuff. We worked on the computer a little bit. He's got, I'm jealous. He's got so much free space. He's got like 400 gigs free. I'm like, man, give me some of that.
I just freed up 10 terabytes.
10 terabytes. I mean, I'm down in the I've got 50 gigs here free and 30 gigs free there. It's like, I really need to do something about that.
Your games, your diet on your games. Some of those games are big.
Some of them are, actually. One of them I saw that I hadn't loaded since 2019. Guess how much space it takes?
It seems like the average nowadays is anywhere from 50 gigs to 150 gigs.
It was 100 gigs on the nose.
Right in the middle.
Right down the middle, yep. 100 gigs, and that's from 3 years ago, but it had been updating itself. Like when I would launch Steam each time since then, it would like to pull down updates, and that's also why I don't leave stuff like Steam and other launchers like that running all the time, even though I love games.
Yeah, you could come back and find out 20 gigs were taken last night because
Yeah,
Steam
and
needed it.
But for me, it's not even the bandwidth per se. It's more, for one, the storage itself, like knowing when the storage is being impacted. And also, if I'm playing a game, I don't want downloads happening from another game, occupying my bandwidth while I'm trying to use it. So that was one where I was always like, okay, I will update when I want to update. So I just knew that when I would go to play the games, I know that when I log in, it's going to have to do some updates. And I was okay with that as the trade-off for, it's not going to be running all the time. I'll load it. I'll load it when I need it. Update it when I need it,
I
and
would
go from there.
always rather be in control of my updates. Automatic updates, I never cared for it. I don't keep it on. I want to know when something updates. So that way, if I reboot the machine and something does fuck up, at least I know I just did an update, and it's probably because of that.
Yep,
Some
and I can
people are
roll
like-
that shit back.
Some people are like, I turned my machine on today, and it just started acting weird. But not knowing that something updated the night before when you turned your machine off, that doesn't help to fix the weird.
Yeah, it also helps. It's also where asking the right questions helps too. Like, did this just start happening, or has it been slowing down over time, and now it just suddenly got really bad, or whatever?
And that's a common scenario. It's like all computers are dying on you.
It's terrible when they're all trying to pull updates, or they're all chugging the hard drive at 100%, and you're like, what is going on here? I'm just trying to open something, and you're waiting almost 5 minutes. It's like, that's just not right.
Do you have an SSD, or are you still on?
I have 2 solid states. Yeah, I have a solid state that's the small one, actually. That's the operating system drive is only like 150. I think it's that small, 150. The other one I have is the operating system drive is the 450 now. The 150 is the one that I have just Call of Duty on, and another game. I wanted to have like 1 or 2 games that were on a solid state but not on the system drive. So I had like the old one that was my system drive before, that was 150. Became my, this is where the important game will go, let's say, or the game that needs the speed the most, and then everything else was on one of the 1 terabyte platters. But I did lose one of the 1 terabyte platters, which is still in there, and when the machine starts up, it's still clickety clacking. So I'm terrible about the fact that I haven't even pulled it out yet.
You got the knock.
It doesn't knock while the machine's just running normally, but it's only on the startups. On the startup, it gives me the little bit of percussion. So write a little song about the hard drive the little hard drive that could.
When hard drives start sounding like a metal song, you're not in good shape.
Oh yeah, no, not a fan of the percussiveness when it starts that nonsense.
I've got 2 of them that are
What's up, Snave?
knocking. The knock of death.
For Crook there, if that's just a recent link, I wasn't paying attention there for a second, but if you wanted to send that on over to Ange, she would take a look at that and possibly include it in a future show. We're not really taking links tonight. And what's up, Looter? That's probably from a little while ago, but he's probably still hanging out.
Well, we checked
For me,
out
my
some cool shit. That guitar.
yeah.
Wish I had some extra cha-ching to grab me one of those.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one was pretty expensive, but like they were saying, it was more to be, it was designed to essentially be in league with a nice solid solid Les Paul. Got the SG here. What we were looking at before, Snave, was a guitar with magnetic removable solid back panel and removable pickups, hot swap pickups. Yeah, I don't remember if I'm not sure if you missed that from before. This is an SG though. This is my SG. Yeah, I think I already closed that one. No,
Oh yeah, Snave, this thing looks like NASA built it.
Yeah, I still have it open actually. Let me do this. Just give you a little sneak peek of it there from what it still looks like.
You know
And
what
that
would have been
be-
cool? You remember that guitar you showed me that had the light show inside of it? With the,
Yeah.
If you incorporated that with that design, and
There it is.
I'd have everything I want in a guitar between those 2.
So with this guitar, basically the whole back, there's an aluminum frame in the middle, and the back pops off with magnets. And then when you pop the back off, the pickups, you can literally just pop them right out and pop another one right in without changing the strings, without doing anything, just pulling them out from the back. And he did it like while he was playing a solo, like like put it in a
yeah,
and
you
like
could
pull the
replace
other
your
pickup out.
pickups. You could replace your pickups in a minute and start playing another song on stage.
Yep, I wanted to see if I can get to a freeze shot of him pulling the pickup out there. Let's see. This is when he's doing test tones at that point. But they were saying that as far as what pickups you could put in there, you can send them whatever pickups you want, and
it's
they'd load them.
It's magnetic, Snave. Like it just sucks it right in with the magnets.
There we go.
And the pickup just locks right in.
There's a better look. So like these big round things are on the outside. That's the magnets to hold the cover on, and the cover is just a whole solid back plate. So there's no instrument pop off cover and all that. It's all just from the one solid piece. And then the pickups themselves just have that quick release in the middle that just pulls them. It just pulls them right out.
Yeah, and the cool thing is if you have special pickups that you want to use on it, they will mod the pickup for the magnet kit for free. See, that's him putting a pickup in right there to just snaps right in with the magnet.
So as you guys can see, swapping pickups
No, that was my response. Whoa.
also go through this
Strings
aluminum
also
frame.
went through to there.
So the neck is bolted to the frame, the pickups, the strings, which means the sustain should be amazing. So clearly this is an amazing
wasn't
design. Really
bullshitting about
reminds me
that
of something
sustain.
that NASA or perhaps Boeing would dream up. But there is one more game-changing feature. Let's check it out now. So why design a guitar that can have the back removed in literally 1 second? Well, here's why. So as you guys can see, swapping pickups could not be easier. All you do is you have your pickup, which is mounted on a ring with magnets and pins. Slap it in.
Oh, it gives me tingles to see it that easy.
Yep.
So it does.
Fast. And
I
this
know,
was the
Dave.
guitar itself is a. This one is called Relish. Relish Guitars was the manufacturer, and this is from Daryl Braun Guitar, his page, and this
And it's
was
got
from
nice
a couple years ago.
design. Like, you know, I like the look of the design just as much as the amazing design of the guitar.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely worth a revisit because that was a good one. And again, I just found his channel just because I watch so many so many things about guitars and basses and all that I really come up with I find some really cool channels out there from people that I would not have found otherwise just because they come up in the feed. This one, it was expensive. It was, I want to say the links were 1,600 and 1,400. He had two different links for it, but I think that was again 3 years ago. So I'm not sure what they would be now, or if they've moved generations on beyond this as far as what they're doing. But the fact that it was that advanced already 3 years ago tells me that they've probably improved and come down in price both since
If
then.
you're
That would be my
saying
guess.
1,600, that's already a good price for something like that. I was thinking like 5,000 plus.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about a feature set like that, that's what he was saying. It was kind of priced in the range that you would expect to find, like a good SG standard, maybe 1,200. You get a Les Paul for in that 1,500, 1,600. So it's in the range of that kind of a thing. But yeah, instead of multiple thousands of dollars, getting it for somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 wouldn't be terrible. Not that I'm running out to buy one because I don't have that cash at the moment, but I would love to.
Certain instruments, there's certain price. I spent 3,500 for my Roland.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't even blink. I was happy to get it for 3,500. At the time, it was really going for 4,500.
Yep. And that's where it's all relative.
I bought the floor model just to save $1,000.
Yep, exactly. That's another good way to do it, especially for something like that, because how banged on could a floor model get on a keyboard? Really, I mean,
I was the one banging on it from the moment they put it out on the floor. I was there every other day.
I got to get that
it for like 6 months. I was like, this one's mine.
I would have to get that scene from the Blues Brothers when they go into Ray Charles to the music shop, and they're talking about the action. There's no action left in this keyboard. He's like, the action on this keyboard is fine, son. He's like sets him off to the side and like sits down and plays and just goes nuts. That's awesome. Got to get that scene. Plug that in for another time. But yeah, that was Relish Guitars. It is a Swiss company, and I love that scene. A Swiss company. They we're talking about the precision, the build. I mean, looking at it, super clean, super nice build. I was saying the inside of that guitar was like so beautiful. Like you just want to open it up and just look at it every time before you even go to do anything, whether you're going to change the pickups out or not. Just like, wow, okay, and then close it back up and then start playing. But it looks awesome. It sounds awesome. The sustain looks like it'll be there, especially again with the strings going through the body like that, through that plate in the middle at the least. That's where they stop so that they don't go to that, the back panel. So it looks even clean on the back.
Check out that video, Snave, because he does do a tone test, and when you hear, what do you call it, the piezo?
The piezo,
switch,
yeah.
Piezo switch.
It's got a pull pot down there, yep.
There are some sweet spots with that switch where it's like, it sounds like an acoustic, electrified.
Yep, some good clean tones, and he did some overdrive tones. He did some distortion tones, doing a little bit of a test there, going through and just just showing that it's really versatile, and as well being able to just pop them. I think again it depended on which things he had popped in at the time, but he did have as a third. Let me see if I can find the spot on there. A third spot where it had a.
They said the neck pickup. I hadn't heard that term before.
Yep,
Neck
one's closer to the neck and one's further towards the body.
So they just say the one that's closer to the neck is the neck pickup?
Yeah, like right here, this first pot is a pull, push pull, and so when he's doing, you know, he throws the three-way switch, and he's got that, and he's also got I think it was a tap down here. So he does have some good controls on it. I guess it's probably combined volume, combined tone, the three-way switch, the one down there, and then this one is the pull pot that had the piezo. But as he was running it through its paces down here is where he was basically showing, like here's the neck pickup and the piezo blend, and like going through some of the, here, let's do this. It's a sweet tone. But yeah, it's got the piezo. He's got a lot of options there, and again, that's just with those two pickups. That's, I believe he was trying to go through more of the stock sounds, more of what you get with the stock pickups, so that, you know, it wouldn't be, oh, this is what you have to add thousands to get these other, you know, options for. This was like, if you just got the guitar as it is with the stock pickups, these are the tones that you can get, and these are the options that you would have. So very cool. And again, they probably have multiple ones since then, but Relish is is the company name. They had the logo back here somewhere.
It comes ready to rock right out the box.
Relish. Yep. And the case is beautiful too. I mean, it was like a red, crimson case, and that's where you had the pickups in there. In their little quick launchers, or speed loaders, I guess I'd call them. But yeah, definitely very solid. And like I said, we went through the whole video earlier, and it's a good one to check back out. And you know,
Yeah,
definitely should check it out.
If any of you have some cool guitars that do weird shit like that, let us know. Gear Whores is
Yeah,
coming.
Gear Wars, exactly. And that's where the stuff definitely gets cool, when stuff, you know, we can start looking at you know, some of the big changes that could make a real difference. Like something like that, again, to me, it isn't that necessary, because again, I don't do much changing my tone. I usually just am focused on, I'm just, you know, playing guitar parts, like learning stuff and playing through headphones, and it's not as important which pickups I'm playing through. I have an SG, which is a workhorse, and I just, you know, I use that for essentially everything. I have other guitars that I use at the studio and whatnot.
This is going to change the guitar building landscape. Other guitar manufacturers are going to take a cue from that approach. They
Yeah.
have to.
Adapt or die. Yeah.
Well, if there's a lot of people buying it because they can move pickups like that,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a feature that you're going to start seeing in other guitars.
The one I was describing, somebody who would find it most useful would be somebody like who brings, you know, 7 guitars or 6 guitars to a gig, because they have to have all those different sounds. If they could now get, you know, 4 of those guitars worth of whatever from using that system, just by have that one guitar and be able to snap pickups in and out to get those different tones that you would have gotten from 4, 5, 6 different guitars. Now you've only got to bring and tune up 2 or 3 guitars, and that's way better. So I could see it being a big help in a situation like that.
Hell yeah. That was a really interesting one this week, looking at that.
Relish guitars.
Definitely got to get ready for a guitar special. All you guitarists out there, guitar night's coming due.
And the one that I have hooked up, it doesn't show up as well on camera because it's a black SG. So like with a black shirt and a black SG, and the cameras the way they are, you can't really see a whole lot other than that kind of thing. But that's the SG.
Very metal of you.
Yeah. Actually, the other guitar I have in the house at the moment is the Dean, the one that was wearing the cowboy hat the other day, which is even more metal because that one's essentially like a flying V, but it's also black. So, yeah. What year? That's a good question, actually. I got it from somebody who lived 2 doors down from me in the apartment building where I live, so I never really investigated it closely. But it has the razor blade as the marker on the 12th fret, so it's the Dean Dime Razorback. And I would have to look to see what year it is, but it is tucked away at the moment. It was out just yesterday. It was sitting in my chair. So if you saw or even for New Year's, if you saw the video for New Year's, that's what was sitting in my chair all night. So it was sitting here and just had that.
The mystery Glenn.
That was the mystery Glenn. Yeah, because it had the cowboy hat on. So it was the guitar with the cowboy hat sitting on it, sitting right here instead of me.
He filled in good for you.
Yep. And with the colored light that I had going on, I think I had the crazy like this kind of light going on. So it was like shining off of that 12th fret marker, like with all the shimmering of the colored light going on. I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. So I went with that one. It is nice to have the option to have a little bit of a light over here because it was just too dark. I don't really have a good lighting scenario going on over here, but with this little thing, this definitely helps out a lot. I can make it too bright. I can make it just bright enough. But I also have my camera set up more for the body here for when I'm playing guitar or whatever. And I was doing some keyboard, but you can't hear the keyboard. I have it set up for the meticulous so that we could actually look at individual notes if I'm playing on the weighted keys. But that was something that was good, Tony, that I noticed is that the weighted keys through meticulous, I was not getting any delay where I was getting a bit of a delay with the Casio when I was doing it that way.
Yeah, hey. Use the weighted keys, man.
So then using the weighted keys would be the thing. But again, certain things, like if I was trying to do like really fast.
Yeah, you will find where the weighted keys can be a little bit of a hindrance, especially some of the stuff you do. It suits itself better to bouncy plastic keys.
Yeah. And even if it's just, holding. But the other thing is, though, that this does have the pedal. So I have sustain with the weighted keyboard because it's a full essentially piano, where it's the size of an upright piano essentially, and has the full sustain pedal and the sostinato pedal. So I can
live without my sustain.
Yeah, and it's like when I watched Jeff play over at the studio on Monday, and he's using the foot pedal. I was like, oh, that's what's really missing from what's going on over here. Especially if I was trying to play like the Chopin pieces, because some of those really do need that sustain in order to keep it, keep that note held while you're getting ready for these two on the way to that other chord over there. Otherwise, it sounds choppy when you're trying to do it on even on the weighted keys, it would sound choppy because those transitions aren't as smooth without the pedal.
Yeah, I'm thinking of actually biting the bullet, and Roland has a 3 pedal, that simulates the entire grand pianos, with
Nice.
what is it, the sostinato pedal that
The middle one where it can just do
half
it. Yeah.
sustains and half doesn't.
And that's the one I don't have here, actually. With this, I have the sustain pedal on the one side, and the other one should be, like usually the pedal that's on the left for a piano is the quiet pedal, essentially, where it's moving over and only playing, 2 of the 3 strings or 2 of the 4 strings by moving the hammer slightly to the side. But the one in the middle, it'll only hold what notes you have held down, so you can hold down a big chord, hold that middle pedal, and now you can play other notes all over the keyboard, and it'll only hold those hammers that you had held when you hit that middle pedal. Whereas normally with the full sustain pedal, as soon as you hold that sustain pedal, it's fully open. So now any other notes that you hit are going to fully ring out the whole time. Right. But with that middle pedal, it's only going to hold, and that's where that Chopin song also would be useful for that, because that's where you want to hold that chord but leave it open to get a couple of notes just kind of sprinkled in without having them ring out the whole time as well, because that could make could make a bit of dissonant because you have too many notes ringing out at one time if you're doing little runs and stuff. So that's where that's useful.
That's a pedal that I've contemplated adding. I have the expression pedal and I have the sustain pedal, but this is like the ultimate one. It's just like $100. Hard to. I don't really use the sostinato too much, so it's like, do I really want to spend that much?
Hey, what's up, Little Raj?
Little Raj. Oh, looks like it's midnight. I've got our new little intro.
Yes. The intro/outro. We do appreciate you guys coming by. Sorry, Ange, but we're just finishing up over there, so we're going to need to for posts there or for links. You can send those over to Angie, to Angify. Different Ange, exactly.
Oh my God, he's fucking with me.
Yeah, no, but you can send the link over to Angify, and she'll put it in for a playlist sometime next week. For me, that was let's see. The Jack of All Trades. Yeah, that's one where I've seen a couple of videos lately where they were talking about getting all the sounds on a Telecaster, for example, or getting all the sounds on a Strat, or getting all the sounds on an SG. So they were looking at ways in which you could try to get that to get all the different sounds, whether it's adding this particular pedal, or using the tone controls in this way, or whether it's the attack, how you actually get the what strings you're putting on. But there were a few of those, and I believe those were from Thoman's Guitars, which is another one of the links that we've used before. That's where Julia was the one who played like the Earth, Wind, and Fire bass lines, and the other, she's got some really good funk bass and stuff like that. Thank you, Snave, appreciate that. But yeah, we'll definitely check those out. As far as the getting all the different sounds, and again, a lot of it came down to the fingers. Some of it had to do with what pedals they had, but they were trying to do things as basically as they could. So trying to just use things that everybody could have access to, not things that's, this $10,000 pedal and that $5,000 amp or whatever. So trying to keep it as useful as they could to be able to get all the sounds that you can out of what you have in-house. Yep. And we will see you guys next time. Appreciate it. Always fun, Tony. Catch you next time.
Oh yeah, that was highly educational.
Thank you. And thanks to the people from the channels that we featured today. We'll have links in the videos later.
Night, everyone.
Good night. A little ambient noise, yeah?
So now you're grabbing some BandLab clips.
Yeah.
Now for me that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can scratch. With this AI, like scratching it, actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the
I
right
didn't
spot.
even notice. 40.
Talkin' shit with Glenn and Tony.
I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.